Now that the presidential election dust has settled... Listen up, zombies. Would you consider yourself to be a good apple? So you're Oprah.
Yeah.
To me, you're white. Am I wrong?
I mean, if you see white.
Work on your kids. They're gonna need it.
That's not love that's in the air. You can't out-sin God's grace. Hello, and welcome to Wretched. My name is Todd Friel. I am your host, the wretch the song refers to. Wouldn't it be a shame to waste a really bad presidential election? Now that it is over, perhaps there are some lessons we can learn from the presidential election of 2016. Wouldn't it be a waste if we didn't recover from this debacle and at least go, okay, let's see if we can learn some stuff here. The list that I have prepared for you, I do not expect you to agree, well, frankly, with any of it. I am offering this so that as Christians we can work through the issue differently than Fox News. Let them get into the political prognostication. Let them debate the in and out. Get Karl Rove in and Charles Krauthammer to tell it. Let them do that. You can watch as much or as little of that as you want to. But as Christians, we should be having a different conversation. With that in mind, this is my offering of the 12 lessons perhaps we can learn from this national nightmare. Lesson number 12. Politicians are not a sign of the times. They are a reflection. Oh, that kind of hurts, doesn't it? Not only do we need to remember that what we get in this representative republic is a representation of us, I think knowing that should actually change our perspective, well, frankly, on a lot of political issues. Let's imagine for a moment that the Revolutionary War didn't go as well as everybody was hoping for, and the Russians came in, took over, and this has been a communistic totalitarian regime for the last 240 years. Just imagine. Now, just imagine for the next election cycle, you are given a raging communist, somebody who is just, whoa, they are just hardline red, versus somebody who's just a socialist. Wouldn't you go, well, that's getting better? Because that's what we've always had. This is getting better. I think that's where we're at in this country. We are no longer the moral majority. We are hopefully a holy minority. And most folks around us are going to be voting differently and thinking it through differently than we do. Now, that raises a question that I do believe we need to spend some time answering. If America is bent on voting for really, really, really bad people, what is my role in that? Is it to engage deeply into politics to get better presidential candidates, or do I have a different assignment? Please let me offer this again. None of this is to suggest you're doing it wrong. You need to start doing it my way. You should be involved this much, but not that much. Can't we just talk about it and learn from what we just went through? Lesson, perhaps number 11. The religious right is tote. Put a fork in it, it's done. Bury it, it is stone cold. That is the view of some political pundits who are saying this is the status of what we know as the religious right, the moral majority. It's dead. Others don't go that far. They would say it's simply so fractured that it no longer has the political clout that it once did, regardless of where the moral majority is on that spectrum. It's damaged. It's wounded. How now shall we respond? You see, others are going to have conversations, now that the election is done, about what cabinet members should be selected. What should we do if China ends up having a trade embargo? All wonderful conversations to have. the Christian conversation on talk radio, it should be so radically different. And this is a beautiful chance to talk about the subject of the moral majority. Can we have a loving conversation and ask the question, if the moral majority is dead, should it have been birthed in the first place? We need to ask that question. And it could be a really good, zesty, loving, theological debate. What is the role of Christian in politics? How do we speak about the issue? Should we be organizing and representing ourselves like that in order to get a good... Let's just have the debate. I am not saying anything about which side, but we should be talking about it, shouldn't we? Lesson number 10. Can we talk about how we talk about politics? This is something, too, that we should at least be discussing. When I'm at work, when I'm on the court, when I'm just out and about at the grocery store and I engage somebody and the subject of politics comes up, can we discuss how we Christians have been talking about it to date? What have been the effects of that? And how should we be talking about politics in the future? This is not to resolve the issue, but this is to suggest that we should be having a conversation about the differences of political dialogue. For instance, voting for somebody is different than putting a bumper sticker on your car, isn't it? Voting for somebody is different than supporting and endorsing and even defending your candidate. Isn't there a difference? Shouldn't we now ask ourselves the question, how should I be talking and engaging and supporting and being involved with the issue of politics? This much is certain. I think we've all gotten this, that when we put our support behind a really bad candidate, because some people went, well, we just don't have a choice in the matter, what does that say to progressives, to liberals, to godless people? Well, they get kind of torqued at us, and it becomes a stumbling block to our more important role in building a better, more lofty kingdom, the kingdom of God. Can we talk about how we talk about politics? Lesson number 9. Is there a way to avoid making enemies out of the harvest field? Our primary concern for our fellow citizens is the concern for their souls, not for who is going to occupy the White House. I'm not saying that that's not an issue and that we shouldn't be involved in that. I'm not talking about whiplashing from fundamentalism to evangelical activism. I'm saying let's just figure out where we are at in all of this. The most important thing about us is what people think about us, because that supports or undermines our testimony to them. We want them saved. So now that maybe the temperature is turned down just a little bit on the political dialogue, we can talk about whether or not our engagement as Christians, individually and collectively, we need to observe that as best we can to determine, have we become a stumbling block to the gospel? Gotta talk about it. Discuss, we will share the other 8 potential lessons from the 2016 debacle next on Wretched.
Newsflash, Christian churches can't seem to articulate the gospel. Somehow the evangelical church has turned the glorious gospel into a life enhancement program, a system to clean up the outside of the cup, a health and wealth promise. The gospel is none of those things. The gospel is far more magnificent. That's why Wretched produces resources like Gospel Clarity, defining the good news. Wretched, amazing grace, amazing gospel. Take a dollop of sarcasm, mix it with conservative theology, and voila, Wretched TV. Wretched, amazing grace, amazing gospel.
Hello, my name is Todd. I sell stools. But hey, before I tell you about all of the benefits and features, I have to tell you, you really need to vote for Hillary Clinton. You want to buy one? Welcome back to Wretched. Sorry, I have a little OCD. If I don't put that exactly in the lines, it'll bug me for the rest of the program. How did you respond to my sales pitch? Trying to encourage you to purchase one of my products, but injecting my political views, which most likely, unless you're a liberal glutton for punishment, most likely you're not a Hillary fan, but I am. And I want you now to please buy my chair, because if you voted for that rotten Donald Trump, then you didn't vote for the right candidate. Did I tell you that it's ergonomically correct? You see, Donald Trump is such a lout, and Hillary Clinton is amazing. You know, she won the Margaret Sanger Award. Hey, did I tell you this has got a hydraulic lift? It goes up and down. Wanna buy one? How's my pitch going? The gospel is, sorry, OCD. It'll just make me crazy. The gospel is not a product, but that is our message. And I'm simply asking the question as we ponder the lessons of the 2016 election, is my engagement, is the way that I am speaking about this subject undermining my gospel pitch? Let us continue with what I think are some lessons we could at least discuss now that we have a new commander-in-chief. Here is lesson number 8. We are self-deceived. Both Hillary and the Don, they behaved in atrocious fashion and yet touted their own goodness. Both sides did this. They are self-deceived. That's how that happened. That is how somebody can say, I'm for women, and I want little babies in the womb to be suctioned out because I want abortion to not be safe, legal, and rare. I want a lot of it, even late-term abortion. But I care about girls. And you go, no, you don't. Why does she think like that? Because she's self-deceived. Before we look at them and tisk, it is a lesson for us. I, too, am self-deceived. My brain does not come up with the most biblical conclusions all the time. And that is true also when it comes to politics. When we engage on this subject, I need to remember my brain is kafritz too. God is sanctifying it. God is fixing it. He's rewiring it. But I could still biff it on an issue like this, and that should, watching the bad candidates say that they're wonderful candidates, actually give me some humility as I discuss this. Should. Lesson number 7. Can we please take a moment to study church-state history and draw some conclusions? Let me share a very general history and then discuss the conclusions. Back in the 4th century, a fellow named Constantine hopefully got saved. And what did he do as the emperor of Rome? He mandated that Christianity would become the state religion. How did that turn out? How do we view that as Christians? Do we like the idea of the Romans invading a territory and then saying, congratulations, you're now Christians? We go, well, that's not a good thing. And so it is, we can potentially learn a lesson from Constantine or the Holy Roman Empire, or even the battle that we saw, for instance, in Great Britain about the state church, the dissenters, how engaged the religion is in politics. It typically ended up very bloody. Now, we should understand that and then start talking about, all right, what's the Christian role here in this shebang? How should we be trying to position ourselves? What's our message? How much do we want our faith to influence policy? We should at least take a look at history and talk about it. Lesson number 6. Did Mike, okay, just remember, I am not saying good, bad, or otherwise. Okay, actually I'll say, I like Mike Pence. I really do. He's a brother. I'm just asking a question. I'm not trying to slam him or slaughter him. Let's just see if we can learn something from him. Did Mike Pence get unequally yoked and besmirch his testimony? Yes, I said besmirched. 2 Corinthians 6 warns us to not be unequally yoked. That does not mean we cannot have friends that are pagans. They're the witness field. We want to engage with them. We do business with them, but we don't become their business partner. We can have friends, but they don't become bosom buddies. We can potentially like somebody of the opposite gender, but they shouldn't become our spouse. Why? Because there's theology that is at stake as we go about the business of joining ourselves closely, knitting together with unbelievers. What's at stake? The gospel. If I'm representing Jesus, and then I do a full-on embrace with a guy whose character is deplorable. Here he is, my dance partner. Here I am. I'm dancing with a deplorable politician. What do people think about the gospel? I think we should ask ourselves the question, let's learn from Mike, should I be endorsing candidates? Just asking. Should I be defending them and supporting them? Should I be putting out a yard sign that potentially unequally yokes me with the person who drives by and goes, great, voting for that guy? Let's at least talk about it. Lesson number 5. Are there levels of political engagement, campaigning versus defending versus supporting versus voting? Most certainly there are. We should discuss them. Should I be out campaigning for any candidate? Let's be honest. It wasn't just Donald Trump who makes progressives and unbelievers weep and gnash their teeth. If you vote for anybody who even bends a little bit conservative, who is the political opponent, I wonder if we are making spiritual opponents when they should be the harvest field. We should at least be talking about this. And 4 more lessons next on Wretched.
Take a dollop of sarcasm, mix it with conservative theology, and voila, Wretched TV. Wretched. Amazing grace. Amazing gospel.
All right, let's get this straight. That was nothing more than a metaphor. Welcome back to Wretched. Adrian, you expressed a little concern about the last segment. What was it?
You were evidently dancing with a male politician, and that was really disturbing.
Simply trying to illustrate a point.
Okay.
Thank you for your concern.
Never do that.
Let's get back to election lessons. 2016, number 4, Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. Remembering what he told Pontius Pilate in John chapter 18, Rexella, God is building a different kingdom than politics. Please note, and I grant you this is an argument from silence. Nevertheless, when Pontius Pilate was trying Jesus and he was asking, are you a king? Why didn't Jesus say, I am? And let me tell you something, Pilate, as soon as we get you tossed out on your ear, we're going to put somebody into office. He didn't say that, nor did he say to Pontius Pilate, as long as I have your attention, you know, your tax policies. No, he didn't do that. Not that those aren't genuine issues. Jesus was aware of the political scene. Jesus interacted with the politicians as needed, but he was not a political being. Instead, he was building God's kingdom, a grander. God could take over any nation. He raises up one king, he drops another. He could take over any nation that he wanted to and have the most pristine parliament, whatever the system is, wonderful rulers, and everybody sings, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," before school starts every day. He could do that, but he's interested in something bigger, building his kingdom by saving sinners. We should remember that. Lesson number 3 from 2016. Can we talk about how much time we're spending on politics versus the local church, our families, or evangelism? I can't answer this for you. Only you can do that, perhaps with the help of your spouse or your local congregation, but we should at least be thinking about it, right? How many hours have you put into politics, watching Fox News, perhaps going to meetings? No, I'm not saying any of those things is a sin. Watching MSNBC is a sin. But my point is you can be engaged if you want to, but consider how much at the expense of building the better kingdom. Consideration number 2. Can't we all just get along? As we discuss these issues, can we do it differently than Hannity and Combs, than a liberal and a conservative politician? Couldn't we talk to each other nicer than, say, I don't know, Hillary and Donald did during the debates? I know that's not a very high bar, but we should be able to jump over at least that hurdle. Final lesson from election 2016, Daniel 2:21. It is God who changes the times and the epochs, or epochs, depending on how you say Augustine or Augustine. He removes kings and establishes kings. What is the lesson we can learn from Daniel? God has got this. Are you concerned, anxious, troubled because that candidate is now soon to be our commander-in-chief? That's what we've got. We've got to deal with it. That is precisely what we've got. Why? Because God ordained it. There is not an emperor, a ruler, a governor, a civil magistrate that is not there by permission or by the immediate intervention of God. Why? It's changing the epochs and the seasons, and maybe he's moving the center of Christianity, if there is such a thing, from America to China. I don't know, but I know this. Nothing is happening that God has not ordained. And all of God's people should go, whew, until tomorrow, go serve your King.